Hello and welcome back to the Guardian Film Show, coming once again to your emotional rescue. It's a particularly stressful time at the cinema, what with all the career crises, male violence and childhood trauma. But fear not, breathe deep. We're going to get through these next 20 minutes together.
I'll give you my everything.
Seconds out on this week's show. Jake Gyllenhaal is on the ropes and about to bounce back in the bullish boxing drama Southpaw.
I'm Barney Thompson, and I've got two styles.
Robert Carlyle has thrown in the towel and reached for the razor in the black comic romp The Legend of Barney Thomson. And director Mia Hansen-Løve leads us through the long, heady night of the garage music scene in the acclaimed French drama Eden. But naturally we must begin with Inside Out, the latest animated fandango from the Disney Pixar studio. It's a film that contains joy and sadness, anger and disgust. And yes, we do mean that literally.
So, Riley, how was the first day of school?
Fine, I guess.
11-year-old Riley has just moved with her parents from airy Minnesota to grungy San Francisco. She doesn't like it. She can't adapt. And upstairs, in the exploded set of Riley's brain, her emotions are toiling to steer the girl away from a full-blown nervous breakdown.
Wait! The core memories!
Can I say that curse word now?
Simultaneously joyous and disgusted to be joined by Peter Bradshaw and Henry Barnes. Peter, there's obviously a kind of underlying psychology to every kid's film, and yet this might be the first one to actually take those elements and put them
and make them
stage.
So almost abstractly manifest. I can't remember who it was, some very witty blogger who said that the history of Pixar is, what if monsters had feelings, what if toys had feelings, what if feelings had feelings? And that is what this is basically about. I've seen it twice now. It's terrifically funny and smart. I enjoyed it very much. The nearest thing I could compare it to, probably from the great Pixar canon, I mean, it's close to Toy Stories. That is to say, the secret life of toys and the secret life of feelings, kind of presiding over the child's destiny like secret sort of tutelary deities. It's comparable in a way in its abstract quality to Monsters, Inc., but I think it's even more abstract. I mean, and of course also The Wizard of Oz. It's kind of like Oz, and her ordinary life is kind of the Kansas to her Oz. I really liked it. I couldn't quite go the extra mile to say it's an absolute stone cold masterpiece in the way that other people have been going to.
Why?
But I think it's because it's so abstract. It's almost as if it's been developed in a lab. I mean, the prospect of sadness and joy becoming sad, I mean, that is sad. But it's not as devastatingly sad as the sad bits in Toy Story or Up, which were about real, unavatared, unabstract people genuinely feeling sad.
And also kind of unprocessed emotions that then the viewer maybe interprets and has a kind of play on.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas here it's almost overthought, isn't it?
Yeah, almost. I mean, I don't want to start talking myself into kind of doing this film down, because it's absolutely terrific. I mean, it's so exhilarating and fun and thought through, and the minute you think it's sort of running out of steam, there's some new super clever idea that's been developed through, I don't know, a script process which is almost impossibly sophisticated and hyper-evolved. I mean, it's wonderful.
It is ingenious, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, and you know, it's the main faults you can throw at it as it's complex and ambitious.
Yeah.
You know,
well, that's not quite what I'm saying, but yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's not a Pixar classic. I think probably their golden era is perhaps done, but it's great, right? It's really clever, really smart. So, elements of like a Woody Allen sketch comedy in there somewhere, and then just this sense that childhood can be an unbearably sad time, or turns into an unbearably sad time.
And a necessarily sad time.
Yeah.
That to actually leave it, which everybody has to do, involves a kind of embrace and an acceptance of sadness.
And literally losing parts of yourself as well, which you used to hold as the bedrocks of your personality. They completely crumble away. And, you know, and to teach kids that kind of message, or to even attempt that, is highfalutin and should be commended. And I think that's the best thing about the film. I thought Phyllis Smith as Sadness was fantastic in this. Really clever performance, considering you have to play these characters on literally one note all the time.
Yeah.
It's really well done. Yeah, it's smart, it's clever, it's visually inventive. It's nowhere near as good as my favourite, which is Ratatouille, but yeah, I loved it.
We can fix this. We just have to get back to headquarters.
That's long-term memory. You could get lost in there.
Think positive.
Okay, I'm positive you will get lost in there.
Joy followed by sadness in Pixar's lovely Inside Out. Next up, we invite you to lose yourself in Mia Hansen-Løve's Eden amid the drink and the dancers and those repetitive trance-like beats. But don't stay there too long. You may never get out. Paul Valet is a wannabe superstar DJ, a purveyor of New York garage with a Parisian twist. He's spinning from 1999 to 2001, from 2008 to 2013. He's quite lost in the music, enthralled to the lifestyle. But beneath the stylus, the seasons keep turning. Henry, there's almost a kind of oxymoronic quality to films about music, isn't there? But this one, I think, did really well.
Yeah, it works really well. It's based on personal experience as well. It's based on her brother's experience of coming up in the French touch scene, along with people like Daft Punk, who obviously went on to be pop superstars. And it's a tricky line to walk, really, because you have to give this idea that they're so in love with the music that it's partly all that they do, and you just have a repetitive series of parties that they go to, and the music itself is fairly repetitive. So you have to convey that they love that experience, but at the same time that can get a little bit dull in terms of plot points because you're just going from one nightclub to another, which again is the point. What I did like about it was the subtle touches, like having things like Daft Punk not being able to get into club nights because nobody recognises who they are because they wear the masks, and things that aren't usually shown on camera, i.e. the kind of drug taking of clubbing, this idea that you can have these brief hours of euphoria and then in the morning it sort of falls apart again and can only be put back together at another party. So it gives that sense really well. For me, it was a little bit plotless. I could have done with a bit more, pushing the fader across to giving us a few plot points now and then. But yeah, pretty good.
It reminded me at times almost of Jim Jarmusch's Only Lovers Left Alive. I mean, they're kind of almost, it's a sort of vampire lifestyle.
The night.
Yeah. I have to say, I loved this. I absolutely loved it. I loved it. I think I got it. The plotlessness is the point. It's the ambient feel that she rather coolly refuses the plot points, and they are buried within the kind of ambient sound of the film. I loved it. I thought it was fascinating the way Félix de Givry as Paul never seems to get any older. He's condemned to this strange Dorian Gray existence. He doesn't get any older, but then he doesn't get any wiser. He doesn't advance in any career sense, and he certainly doesn't get any richer. And what I loved about the movie is that it makes a very, very stone cold point that although he seems to be doing fantastically well, and the spectacular excess of these club nights seems to indicate he is advancing in life. In fact, he's still living at home with his widowed mum. He exists in this eternal present. And only when he surfaces, he realises, no, other people are famous. Daft Punk are famous now, but I'm not that famous. And eventually,
he's almost like a butler, isn't he? Kind of servicing the elite.
As I say, that describing it in those terms tends to make it sound like a more conventional film than it is, that it's a kind of story about hubris and disaster within the hedonism. And that's not quite how it pans out. It's more like a kind of continual sort of trance that you go into. And it's, for me, I found it incredibly moving. And I have to say, Mia Hansen-Løve handles it with absolute masterly skill.
Isn't it sort of partly moving because it's kind of about life, or it's about that level of near success where it's the carrot that's always kind of dangling, and actually life is kind of running out under you.
Speak for yourself. So I'm the Daft Punk in this situation. No, I guess, I mean, there is a sweetness and a sadness to being an also-ran, right? Because these scenes are built around groups of bands or musicians coming up together and helping each other out and making a collaborative process of the whole thing of staging these nights. And then you get one or two people who will go off and be superstars and then, collaborate with Nile Rodgers and do a hit song with Pharrell Williams and all this stuff. And then it reminded me a little bit in that way of Dig, about the Brian Jonestown massacre. The people who make it and the people who don't. And the people who don't are often as important to people there at the time. It really is. You're buried away in someone's record collection for the rest of time then, and people will still love you and have that one or two songs they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. But they'll probably go back to listening to Dandy Warhols after a while.
C'est pas mal. Mais je préférais quand c'était plus techno.
T'es folle, je comprends rien, c'est génial, c'est de la disco moderne.
That's Mia Hansen-Løve's gorgeous Dying Fall, Eden. Let's now turn our attention to Southpaw, in which Jake Gyllenhaal stars as a broken-down boxer eyeing a possible redemption when the final bell sounds. And here he is going the full 10 rounds with battling Benjamin Lee.
The light heavyweight champion of the world, Billy Curry.
Are you still good at fighting after the film now? Like, are you still training? If I started fighting you now, I'd be able to sort of fight back.
In this room?
In this room, yeah.
Yeah. If you start fighting right now, I would be able to fight you, yes. I don't know who would win or what your skill level is, but I still train. I still love learning. Once you hit the mitts and you know that feeling when you have a combination and you are, working your offense and defense at the same time, and, you push yourself to that physical and mental level, it's hard, particularly for someone like me, to just stop. Wherever I go, I'll find, a gym that I can work out in and keep learning.
I'll give you my everything.
Peter, after his turn in Nightcrawler, he's really going the full method again here, isn't he?
I'm afraid he is. I like Jake Gyllenhaal as much as the next man or woman. I thought he could indeed and should indeed have had an Academy Award nomination for Nightcrawler, but this, the follow-up,
just twists too much.
I just think this is the most overhyped film of the decade. It's hammy, utterly cynical boxing movie with no heart or soul whatsoever. It doesn't have the heart and soul of something like Rocky.
It doesn't?
No, absolutely not. It has a few things sort of pinched from Scorsese, a few touches like the intertitles showing the titles of the fights and all the rest of it. I thought this was completely shallow and empty. It's well made, and the opening act is watchable. It's strong and macho and sort of sexy. Of course it is, and I absolutely agree with that. But then it just falls to pieces in a way that that Billy's own life falls to pieces, and we have this ridiculously hokey redemption narrative whereby he just is reduced to rock bottom and comes back in this tough old boxing gym run by this wise old trainer, played of course by Forrest Whitaker. And it's almost like a kind of sketch that could have appeared in some modern version of Kentucky Fried Movie or something like that. I mean, it really is so kind of cliched. And it wasn't just that it was cliched, there was kind of ugly about it, in that it says this is about revenge redemption. But it fudges the issue of should we, the audience, be getting behind that? Yeah. Should we be getting behind the bloodlust? Because there's an awful, kind of icky scene where he tells his daughter, look, you're going to hear a lot of stuff about how I'm going out for revenge. Don't pay any attention. We can say, well, tell that to us. Tell that to the director. Tell that to the screenwriter, because that's what's going on in this film. And the way in which Gyllenhaal has been directed, the way he's bulked up, all the things that I kind of like about Jake Gyllenhaal have been abandoned. And the way his line readings, all that mumbling machismo stuff, totally humorless.
I'm looking for a job, maybe place a trade.
You couldn't handle the rules here, man.
I'm normally a sucker for these kind of redemption stories, like The Wrestler. I love The Wrestler. Yeah. So I don't mind having kind of buttons pushed, but this felt like being kind of ransacked by an idiot.
Buttons thumped.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah. I mean, like, the story for this film is Jake Gyllenhaal got big. Yeah. And that's basically a Daily Mail headline, right? With a photo underneath of him doing that.
Yeah. Do you recognise this?
Exactly. And he was so skinny before, and now he's big. So what you're doing is basically paying to watch Jake Gyllenhaal fill out his gym membership and use an exercise ball for the best part of 2 hours. And a physical feat, it's remarkable. It's not anywhere near his best performance. And this film was originally planned for Eminem. And it shows. He's basically doing an impression of Eminem with a kind of slouchy walk.
That's true.
I mean, I think there is an appeal to, in my lizard brain, to watching blokes thump the hell out of each other. Especially when it's well shot, which it is well shot here. But, there's no character, there's no interest. Rachel McAdams is horrifically miscast as a kind of working class care home girl, and it just doesn't work at all. It's horrible. And thinking about it, the plotting's way off as well. If you look at sports movies, everything from like Mighty Ducks, even up to say Whiplash, which you count that as a sports movie, you're supposed to lose an almost major victory, a major match, and then snatch a victory from the jaws of defeat at the end.
Ordered as a waltz.
And this partly because the trailer gave away absolutely everything that happens in the film anyway. It just gives him the thumping victory straight out almost.
You just spoiled this film for millions of viewers.
Don't waste your money on it.
Look, I'm not going to pretend I know the pain you're going through. But I do know for you to get through it, you're going to have to get back in that ring.
Going the distance with Antoine Fuqua's Southpaw. And last up, it's The Legend of Barney Thomson, the directing debut of the terrific Robert Carlyle. And we're assuming this is his own personal cut.
Barney Thompson, does that sound like a crazy serial killer to you?
A serial killer stalks Glasgow, and lowly Barney Thompson has just been laid off from his barbershop gig. He's caught between Ray Winstone's splenetic cop and Emma Thompson as his smothering old mum. It never rains but it pours on poor Barney Thompson.
What now, Mum?
I'm going to have to fish it out with my spoon.
Henry, do fine actors naturally make good directors?
No, but this isn't terrible. Let's start with that. I've seen Carlyle be psychotic. I've seen him be lovable. It's quite nice to see him be pathetic. I think he carries that quite well. Emma Thompson is loads of fun as his hoary old mum, although she's only 2 years older than him.
Yeah,
So it's a bit weird, teeny bit odd. But she's great, and she, does good game with the part. But it really is just an actor grabbing his mates together. Ray Winstone's in this as well. Ashley Jensen having a bit of fun with a script that he rather fancied, and it's nothing more than that really. It's a genial watch. It's a vaguely funny, vaguely scary watch, but it's not anything impressive.
It felt like the work of a younger filmmaker, sort of in good and bad ways. And it's quite callow, and it shows its influences a little bit. There's a bit of kind of Coen Brothers in there.
I liked it more than that, I have to say. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but I have to say my heart sank when I thought of the idea of Robert Carlyle as the director. I thought it was going to be a real vanity project, but I don't think so. I actually thought this was pretty good. I'm not freaking for it, but I thought it was rather good. I thought the stuff with Emma Thompson is hilarious. Mm-hmm. I thought there was some very nice cameo, Ashley Jensen and Tom Courtenay.
Is that plate from the canteen?
I think there's lots in this film which really is properly funny. I think it comes to pieces at the end in that sort of noirish, neo-noir way, the kind of sub-Tarantino-esque finale I don't think is all that great. But there's lots of good stuff in it. There's lots of very nice locations they found in Glasgow. It's not a masterpiece, but it's a lot better than anyone probably would have thought. And there's lots of good stuff in it.
I wonder if the problem that I had was sort of slight preconception, that
you
have an idea
maybe
of who Robert Carlyle is an actor and what he's interested in.
Yeah.
And I thought he would go a more sort of organic social realist kind of route with his first film.
Well, maybe
this is
that's
very
true.
stylized.
And this is very stylised, but I'm sort of glad he didn't do that. He was relatively unnarcissistic in the way he directed himself. He kind of gives away lots of great stuff to these other characters, especially Ray Winstone, who I think does well in, again, a limited part. It's not a masterpiece, although I think it's not unlikely that Emma Thompson might get some sort of BAFTA Supporting Actress Award or be on a shortlist for it, because I thought she was great. On balance, I have to say, good on you, Mr. Carlyle.
Seeing as you're here, you can give me a lift to the bars. It's my bingo night.
No, I'm sorry, Mum. I can't. I'm actually quite busy.
You maybe didn't hear me. It's my bingo night at the bars.
Gallows humour aplenty in The Legend of Barney Thomson. So that's that. We've gone from Inside Out to The Bout, from the rave to the shave. Hopefully we've achieved a kind of closure of sorts. My thanks to Peter and to Henry. We're back on the couch for another session next week.